I've always been like kind of good at lots of things. And so I just try to have discernment around like the things that fill me up and make me feel good, because I'm good at things that also don't make me feel good. Like I'm really good at like, doing spreadsheets, but that does not make me feel good. So I'm not just leading into things just because I'm good at them. I'm always like trying to make it clear to myself like these are the things that are important to you. Remember those things, keep them top of mind, and let those be the things that like allow you to make decisions in your life, um, rather than chasing a goal or a title, because ultimately that's always going to be something someone else is giving you versus something you're creating for yourself.
I appreciate you coming on to do this conversation.
Thank you.
I know you're really busy and bi-coastal now, so LA and New York and London as well.
Yeah, yeah. No, thank you for having me.
I think I've been following your work since like 2019. I remember I reached out a while, like years ago. I saw some of your early photography back then, or at least when I discovered you. And so I've been sort of in and out checking your journey. So I just want to say like congratulations on all of the wins. It seems like there's been quite a few, especially recently as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's crazy because, like, I look up to you and your career, and I think you're so amazing. And you never really, like, know. It's such a testament to, like, you never know who's watching, because I would have never thought, that you've been following along.
Yes, I've been watching. Some great stuff. And I've been like more recently, obviously, because we've been doing this, we've been talking about doing this interview. I realized that you mentioned like this, what's the term, like the importance of being the architect in your career. And I have some like similarities there where I strongly believe that you need to take control of your career and your future, especially your creative path, because sometimes, if you don't do that, there can be a lot of projects that come your way that it may look like a good opportunity from the beginning, but then it could then sidetrack you from what your goal is. So I really love that term, like being the architect of one's career. And I just love to know, like, what does that mean for you, and how do you architect your career, or how would you sort of guide people to think about that in their own life?
Being the architect of your career, or even just of your own life as a whole, is like something that, you know, sometimes it's easy to forget because we're on the like roller coaster of life, and there are so many things that are related to just circumstance that we think kind of like are the forces shaping our careers and our lives. But there's definitely a lot of like power we hold in like seeing what we want for ourselves and like working out the steps to get there, And I think especially when it comes to like creative success, it's not something that happens overnight. And if you look at any successful person's career, there are always steps along the way. And so I think being an architect of your own like career creatively is about seeing those steps like when they're happening in real time, and understanding like what certain opportunities might do for you, or what doors they might open for you, even if they aren't immediately giving you that kind of return that you're looking for. And I think that's really hard to like navigate when we are like constantly comparing ourselves to others. There's always like so much discourse around being a creative and like the things you have to do to like get in the door. And so it's hard to distinguish between what things are just for exposure, aka like not gonna pay your rent, or other things that are like, actually, this could be the stepping stone to like a whole new chapter in my career. So I think I've just always looked at every opportunity as like, what am I going to leave this situation gaining? And for as long as there's like usefulness in an opportunity for me, whether that's learning skills or having proximity to certain people that are also going to elevate me or introduce me to new things I'm interested in, that's really what I use as like my marker as to whether or not it's worth it or it makes sense, versus like the immediate after effect. So, I say probably less of an ego around like even at the level I'm at now, taking a job that might be like doing like photography for someone's event, but that might actually be the thing that connects me to a person I'm interested in connecting with, or whatever it might be. And like, you know, a lot of people will be like, well, you don't do event, like I don't do event photography, you know? And no, I don't. Absolutely. Like that's not what pays the bills. But I think if there was an opportunity and I kind of, weighed up what those things are, like what am I trying to achieve with this versus like, is this going to be a good look or not? I think those are kind of those strategic decisions I make when I'm architecting my life and creating like that map and that roadmap for like my success, because there isn't a blueprint for doing what I do. And so it really has been moments like that where it's like, oh, can you just like take this artist around London because they've never seen London before, and like I know you and I trust you or whatever. And that's not my job. That's not the kind of thing that I get paid to do. But that could be something that creates a connection and opens a door into something even bigger. So I just look at the things of like how it's going to be useful and whether I can learn from it as my marker. And then also, does it serve like my wider purpose, my spirit of creativity that I carry, like the things that are important to me about storytelling, rather than like, I want to have this specific role. I want to only do creative direction for artists. I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z if they ask me. You know, it's like I look at things holistically, like, is it serving a purpose? Like, any opportunity I take, I think about things through filters of like, is there something that is going to broaden people's horizons about marginalized communities? That could be an event, that could be a global campaign, it could be a small music video with no budget, but like, if I get to be a part of doing that, that ticks my box as far as like the things I'm interested in doing creatively.
How do you discern that though? Right? Like you've got, obviously you're talking about the big opportunities that you're probably targeting. And then you have these other opportunities that you're saying may not be, I don't know, as fruitful on the surface. But then how do you discern what is the right move?
It's a great question. I think that how I discern whether or not something is the right move is like, I get clear on what's important to me as an artist and what I want to do with my art, not necessarily what form of art I want to create. Because I think that limiting myself in that way is limiting myself, I suppose. But I get really clear on like, this year, I want to connect more with the South Asian community because that is a big part of my identity. And I feel like, oh, maybe there's some gaps and it's missing in terms of like, when you look at my portfolio, I would love to kind of lean into that side of my culture more. And so it's not just linked to a creative goal, but it's also about like how I want to understand myself more and how the things I want to learn about myself or the communities I want to be closer to. And so then with that being top of mind, maybe there is a benefit to me doing a, you know, small campaign for an independent brand that really doesn't have a budget, but there is like an interesting story there and a community that it would introduce me to. And so like, I really think it's about, I very much intertwine my life and my work, I would say, because much of my work is about identity and culture. And those are the things I'm always obsessed with, understanding more about myself because I come from so many different cultures and carry so many identities. So for me, I look at like every opportunity, and decide whether or not it's going to further me further as a human being, as an artist, as a person of a certain community. Like, is this helping my community in some way? Is this shining a light on stories that need to be told? If I do this, does it help give a voice to somebody who otherwise wouldn't have it? Like, those are the things that are important to me. And that could look different to other people, but that's what really I use as my like guardrails around like whether or not something makes sense. And I also think it's just about not being precious about the external portfolio versus the internal portfolio. You know, like there's a lot of things that people probably don't even know I've had a hand in, that I've done because I can and it makes sense and it made sense for me, but isn't necessarily something that like is immediately, you can see that when you look at my portfolio. I don't mind doing projects that kind of go outside of the realm of like what Mahaneela the artist puts out, because I feel like there's a very separate thing there. Like I have almost this duality in me of like there's me as the artist and she cares about all those things I mentioned, and then there's me as the creative like tool and like this person that can be really like a Swiss Army knife, like any kind of way in which I can support creatively, whether that's like with a musician as their manager or a DJ performing at a show or being a photographer for an event or for an album cover maybe, or something that's like somebody else's thing. And I think I started my career like doing that for other people. My biggest kind of challenge and journey as an artist was finally separating those things and being like, who am I though? Because I've spent a lot of my career like helping and uplifting other people, and I love to do that. That's a big part of like, I feel my purpose. But now I feel like I have those two identities pretty like clearly defined. And so it doesn't feel like, it feels pretty clear what opportunities are for Mahaneela and what opportunities are for me, the creative director, the strategist, the cultural expert, the thought partner, like, and all of those other things that I love to be, where I'm infusing my artistry, but I'm also like able to be separate from it, which allows me to like be more open to opportunities, you know, like I'm not so like rigid, like you could only come to me for this or that.
I love that you said that, because that's something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, is that distinction between the creative and you as a person. And I think that some people can get into this weird dynamic where you wrap yourself up in the same identity. So then your work starts to define who you are. And it's really important to have that distinction between the two. It's very difficult, I think, as creative people to be able to do that though, because it's like the artist putting up the painting on the wall, right? It becomes a part of you, and we are always showcasing our work, and we're always getting feedback from art school, right? If you go, you're putting your work up on the wall, then it's somebody saying if it's good or bad. Is it technically right, technically wrong? And that can affect you like on an internal basis. So separating the internal from the external, I think, is really important as you grow as a creative individual. And I would go one step further and say, try and also, and love to know what you think about this, like tying your identity also to your job title. Like I'm a creative director, or I'm a art director, I'm a designer, I'm a photographer. Like that's the sort of external labels that people give us. But what do you think about that? Like in terms of like the job titles and labels and defining yourself that way?
Yeah, I can't, I don't like boxes and I don't like labels. I think it's like, it's just, there's a lot like behind these labels, and like I definitely also, you know, we all subscribe to them in certain ways because that's how we've been like perceived, and also it's like how we set goals for ourselves. I know like for a long time I always felt like imposter syndrome around calling myself a director once I was, you know, like more kind of moving into that from photography. It was like I got to a place where I could call myself a photographer, and then it was like, okay, I want to try directing. Am I really a director though? You know? Honestly, it took like me getting into the GGA like this year to be like, okay, I can no longer say that like there's any doubt or imposter syndrome, but
Congratulations.
oh, thank you so much. But yeah, like I think I'm not here for the titles because they limit our imagination, I think. I think that like there's also titles given when people don't necessarily have the skill set for them. I just think that like it's not a great measure to understand like what you do, especially with creative direction. It's such a broad title. I just think like it can be understood in so many different ways. I like to think of myself as an artist, a multifaceted artist, or a storyteller. That feels more right. It feels more like broad, but also specific in terms of what my role is in the creative process. But I think that I'm like, as an artist, I'm like weirdly also very strategic and like think about things from also the right side of my brain, where it's a little bit more like I like to have things in a certain way and understand things in a certain way. And so, like, when I think about how to describe myself and my role in creative projects, I always think about the effect versus like the method by which I'm going to do it. Like, it doesn't have to be me, the one that's directing the campaign, like maybe I'm better served as someone who's writing the script, or maybe I'm better served as that, this or that. And I think that comes from filmmaking. I think before becoming a filmmaker, when I was just doing photography and writing and things like that, I definitely felt like, yeah, there's these pressures around these labels and like I have to be one thing and whatever. And then when I started making films, I realized how it's literally so many people that it takes to make a film. And it's one of those creative endeavors that you really cannot do alone. And I think that's like really beautiful because it like cracked me open to like stop being so hyper independent and like doing everything. Cause I used to also have like a magazine that I started, and I'd be like writing all the articles and taking the pictures and then doing the graphic design and doing the website and like those are great things. I learned so many skills, but like filmmaking allowed me to like let other people take on other roles. And when that happened, I realized like these roles like director or this or that, like no one thing is more important than the other. Like actually what's most important is just like the end result of like we're all trying to achieve this thing. And as a director, like I'm nothing without my gaffer or the key grip, or I couldn't do what I do. And understanding like everybody's roles made me realize, oh, this is all bullshit. Like everybody above the line and below the line, and like who matters and who doesn't. And it was like, yeah, I don't know, something just clicked to me where I was like, oh, so like nobody really knows what they're doing. These roles are like things that don't really matter. Like I don't need to be like, oh my God, this person is, the producer. Like, it's like, we're all just playing a part, which is like doing what we're best at. And that can change like every day. Like I have met so many people in film too, who it's like one day they're being the DOP, the next day they're gaffing for somebody. Like that really taught me a lot about how fluid creativity can be. And yeah, I kind of just rejected any kind of like way of labeling myself moving forward from that point. But I do feel like that has always made it difficult as an artist to kind of like communicate about what I do until recently. I think in the last like 5 to 6 years, the multidisciplinary artist or the multi-hyphenate creative has become more of a normal term and thing. But at the beginning of my career, nobody really knew how to interpret like me doing all these different things, which is probably why I created my own outlet through my magazine, because nobody else understood it.
You had to get your creative outlet somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot's changed. I think, it's production companies would also pigeonhole directors, I feel. Like you're the car person, you're the food person, you're the comedy person. And, I think I'm glad that things are starting to change, because you do see artists now, creators, directors, whatever we want to call it. I just say creators for the lack of a better term right now, being able to handle a lot more. You, case in point, yourself, right? DJ, photographer, director, creative directing, whatever. So you're able to, I think, see the bigger picture over all of these disciplines, and why can't you get involved in all of these different parts? And talking about the humility that it takes when you do walk on set the first time. And I was laughing because you mentioned when you went on set and it's like, oh my God, you got the producers, like 50 people, 100 people on set sometimes. And I used to do main title sequences when I first got to LA. And so we were responsible for doing the first 2.5 minutes of the movie. If the director wanted a title sequence, to settle people into the film, to prepare them for what's to come. Sometimes there was something that the director may have left out because maybe it was going over time, or maybe they watched the cut and they're like, you know what, we need to have something at the beginning of the film to fill in a gap. So that was where I spent most of my first 10 years doing that, and commercials and things like that. But when it came to the credits, we think, oh, it's so important, like the job that you're doing, and, we're doing all of this animation. It could take months to do it, or live action directing. And then the studio would have to fight for the credit. And then you as the artist would also have to fight for your own credit and try and get the studio, the production company that you're working for, to put you down as well. And sometimes Warner Brothers would say no, or Sony would say no, or the studio's only getting the studio credit that you're working for, or maybe not even. And we were always below the caterer. And so that showed me, like you have to humble yourself, because without the caterers, no one's eating on set. And you may think, oh, it's the director and the producer and the sound design and everything else. But the caterer will always get the credit before anyone that's doing main title sequences. And so it kind of puts you in your place and humbles you. Like, know that everyone's really important and you may not even get a credit. And so that taught me, it's not all about the credit either. It's just about the project that you're doing.
I think I learned that too early on because I worked in music. And so I was like internal on artist teams and things, So all of my work, it might be like a photograph of FKA Twigs in Vogue, but it wasn't like Mahaneela photographed FKA Twigs, I do think that is something that I honestly blame the internet. I think I blame like online discourse, and I don't know, like maybe I'm in the minority here, but I am not that pressed. Obviously, we definitely deserve to be credited for our work, of course, but I do understand that there's certain things like that, for maybe the main artist post the day they're announcing their album, they don't necessarily need to put the entire credit list of every single person that it's there on the album, on the vinyl, it's written there and everything, right? But like, I'm not going to get mad about that because I understand of like how to decenter myself as the artist when I'm like uplifting another artist's work. And I knowingly took that role to be a supportive role to the art. And I think like that's something that I learned really quickly just being on artist teams. Like there's so much of my creative work that's out there that isn't like visibly credited to me, but I felt very like valued in the creative process by the artists, by the teams, by the labels. Like it was never that case. It just is more of like, I guess, the status quo of just how artists want to present their work. And that's what I like. I think it's amazing, even like when you think about filmmaking, because I'm like a director and I'm thinking everybody here is so important, but everybody is just willing to then, when the film comes out, it's like by Mahaneela. There's no other,
Everyone else.
And everybody's doing that with the full knowledge that that's the case because they're here to like support your vision, and like everybody is there for your vision. And I think, yeah, like being that supporting role in other people's visions for so long before I like really started to branch out creatively as myself as an artist allowed me to feel more comfortable with like taking different roles and not feeling like I need to get credit for that, like every little piece, I felt like I'm making connections in real life that are helping me move forward in my career. And that's what's important to me. Like, I actually feel like care is the most important component in like creativity, and especially when I'm like, I don't take it lightly if an artist asks me to collaborate on their project or something that's important to them, then like my priority is to help them do that thing, not to get credit for doing that thing. So yeah, I think you learn in those experiences, you understand like that duality of like what I'm doing is extremely important for this project or thing, but also at the same time, I'm just one small piece of like the whole vision, you know, and that's okay.
Yeah. And that's part of being a creative director, you know, like there's some creative directors that, you know, have a hard time when it comes to that point where you're not the only person and you're working with a large team, and the success of your team is what really matters, right? If your team's successful, you're going to do great work anyway. And if you're creative directing it properly, correct in the correct way, then your team should have a good time doing the work. You should be able to get the best out of everyone around you. I mean, you know, you're on set. You're relying on everybody, and the vibe kind of comes from you. It's like, you know, what kind of energy do you want to bring to the space, or do you want to bring on set, or do you want to bring to the room, or the entire project? So I really strongly believe that that's really, really, really crucial to get that right when you're working with other people and it's not just you. Um, like, you know, going back to architecting for a minute, is there something recently that you feel like you've really like meticulously planned and architected in your career?
Yeah, I would say like my most recent job experience. So I've been freelance pretty much all of my career as an artist. I've always worked for myself and done things through my creative studio. And I basically last year, or no, I guess, yeah, the beginning of 2024, I received an opportunity to join a team in-house at an agency. And that was like not at all in my plan. I had no plans to like be a full-time creative at an agency. I've never worked in corporate America, corporate anything really. My job before like going out on my own was in a record label, an indie record label. So still not very corporate. But I thought it was an incredible opportunity. It was to be a creative director on the Beyoncé Levi's campaign. And obviously I love Beyonce. But also it was like the opportunity to work with this incredible agency. It was Shy Day in LA, and you know, 20-year history plus of advertising history, people that made, you know, the iconic Apple commercials and just so many incredible things. And I have never studied anything creative. I've never gone to school for anything creative, marketing, or anything of that sort. And so I thought this is actually, even though my initial reaction was like, no, I'm not looking for a full-time job. Then it was like, wait, this could be really a really useful experience. This obviously could be an opportunity to learn. And I honestly looked at it as like doing a mini MBA or something like that. Because not only was I able to, you know, learn about agency culture, the structure of large scale agencies, but also the structure of brands on the marketing side of like how actually it works internally on big brands. And all of that is like essential for a commercial director and photographer who's constantly working with big brands and big agencies. And I just really thought this could be a great opportunity to learn more about all of this. So I think that was definitely something that was like a strategic decision. I knew that like it was going to kind of take me out of a lot of things that I was planning on doing creatively for myself. You know, I have a lot of other things that I had to put on the back burner to take that opportunity. And definitely had like that moment where you're like, is this the right decision? I don't know. But I really feel like it was an incredible experience. And I feel like I'm almost was like able to be undercover almost. You know what I mean? Like, because I think a lot of people in my position as creatives who make, especially like films for commercial, we don't get to like see what it's like, you know, inside these agencies. And for people that look like me, more often than not, we haven't learned about the traditional structure of agencies or gone to school for marketing or whatever it is that would give you that. So I find that, and this goes back to like the care thing, but I find that in my experiences of working with different agencies or seeing other friends work and peers work with agencies, oftentimes the work when it comes to hiring Black and brown creatives, it's not sustainable. It's like they will work with us once and then never again. And I think I figured out why that is by spending time like in an agency and learning a little bit more about like what they're looking for from directors, or like what kinds of things like they're expecting in presentations and stuff like that we just wouldn't know. And so I think that there's like a big gap there, and there's also like no one person whose role it is to kind of explain to the new creative they're bringing in, this is how it works, this is how this client is, this is all of that, unless somebody's willing to just do it out of the kindness of their heart. And so I think we have this issue of like creatives who have incredible talent, and like the thing that they've done on their own and their personal project is the thing that this brand is referencing, saying, we want you to make something like this. But then when it comes to the actual process of doing it, it's like pulling teeth, because they've never been in a situation where there's this review process and we're doing live reviews now on camera, and like all these things that are very threatening to an artist who doesn't like understand the structure. I mean, anybody, when they don't understand something, it's already like scary. And just again, if it's their personal project, it's probably something that is important to them, something that they care about. And so there's already like a huge pre-existing like stigma around big brands exploiting creatives. And so I think most of us creatives are on defense mode anyway when we're engaging with these agencies. And so then you just see it play out where it's like, it's never going to end up with us like, yeah, let's all work together again, because it's just like both sides are not seeing that gap and like trying to meet each other in the middle. And then the people that do get repeat work again and again are probably people who understand how it works, are used to the flow. Maybe they're ex-agency, maybe they're internal. And, you know, you can see it like night and day of like the directors that get repeat work and then the ones that don't. They just get lots of cool projects that are like one-offs, you know? So yeah, I feel like that was something that I intentionally strategized around in terms of like deciding whether or not it was for me, deciding what actually I was going to gain from that experience outside of, again, just like an accolade. Of course, creative direction on a Beyoncé campaign, great. But beyond that, like, what did I actually learn, and what would I learn was kind of the question there, because I did feel like, obviously not to toot my own horn, but like I was hoping I could still have that opportunity regardless if I worked for an agency or not, you know what I mean? So it was more so about like, is this actually gonna like help further me as a creative and understand the industry more, understand like the industry economics behind everything and what it looks like at a large scale when you're not only creative directing just like a film, but also like what's the store going to look like in Japan, and what are we going to do in the India like airport or whatever it is. And so those were like really like a different way of thinking about marketing. And it was like, I was like, oh wow, so like when I shoot a campaign, there's like a whole year and a half of work that happens that to me I was just like, okay, I shot it, goodbye. And I'm like, on to the next thing, you know? And I had no visibility that there are creatives who are working with these assets, images that I've created for like a year, and like editing and doing all this stuff, and so much consideration and care and versions. And it's really like a lot of work that I just didn't even know was happening, honestly, like not to the extent that I do now. And so I think it's like changed the way that I engage with agencies, and I think how I hope to show up as a creative director, like moving forward, working with different agencies and brands and things, is to kind of help fill that gap a little bit, because I feel like I speak both languages now.
So much there. And I agree because, all right, where do we start? Onboarding, right? So when you're at a agency or a design studio, it's kind of like you get the phone call or the email. Are you available? We got this project. Come in. And then you go in and it's like, there's your seat, there's your computer, start designing. Right. And I'm sure I've never worked at an agency. It was more design and production companies. Right. But I'm sure agency is just listening to you speak, it's works the same way. Right. So you have to like just quickly learn on your feet and there's no onboarding. And where I am now, like a larger corporation, it's like I remember my manager when I first got hired, which I was also not really sort of keen on the idea in the beginning, going to work for a big corporation. That's the truth. I was used to working very nimbly or having at that time, I was having my own clients, like direct to client relationships. And so I didn't feel ready to go into the belly of the big machine. So anyway, I did for very similar reasons, actually, that you're speaking about, understand something that I haven't had any experience with right now, to see what it's like on the inside. And it can't hurt to understand that. And you may actually like it. And like you said, there may be some benefit that comes of that, to actually be inside a corporation that is buttoned up, right? Or as buttoned up as perceived. But when you're in there, it's actually also like, wow, there's an onboarding process. Like there's someone taking me through all this. And so that distinction, I think, was a big highlight for me, where I was like, wow, in my previous life, there wasn't much of anyone telling you how to do it. And it's sink or swim. There's a little bit more leniency. It's like people want you to succeed. There's a lot of grace in a larger space, right? And so you drew the right parallel there. I think that there's sometimes just not enough time at smaller shops for people to put the time in to educate and to also work with like what would you call it? Like freelancers, right? Contractors as well. That's so like, okay, let's see how you are, doesn't work, all right, next. And there isn't this like growth mechanism to help people grow and understand what the needs are. So yeah, very much like agree with everything you're saying there, because I noticed it this way, and I'm glad that I was able to start my career this way. And I think similar to yourself, like a little scrappy first, and then go into the agency and learn. And then there's benefits of it. And we want to do it all ourselves, and we want to be on the outside. Let me get Beyonce as a client myself, but which is not, that's possible too. And we know that, it's like someone could see your Instagram and it's like, oh, you know what? We want to work with her. But I'm glad that you saw the opportunity as something that could add to another notch on your belt.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like I've got like the final Infinity Stone. Well, not the final one, but a big Infinity Stone was just collected, and I'm just like, okay, like so many things slotted into place after that. So many things, and I realized that talent is literally everywhere, but that skill of being able to navigate industry around creative is a really valuable skill that I feel like I had because I had some proximity to, like, just even corporate etiquette and the manner around it, like, which came from, I did work at a few different like music companies and things like that, but it really like kicked in here, where even on every personal project I have now, there's like a structure that I'm applying to it and a format. And it was honestly, I think at the beginning, like it was an adjustment to have that much resource, like that many people to help me. I was like, wait, what? Like, I don't have to do every single part by myself. Like, this is
Or
crazy.
someone to make my decks. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
madness. But then I feel like I'm taking that principle into my freelance work, where I am pulling in a creative friend of mine and saying, "Hey, can you do like 2 days on this project with me?" Like trying to treat myself as like a mini agency, but like realizing how there is a really huge benefit in like adding resources and like people, like time, can really like elevate your ideas and bring things to another level. Even just like the presentation, like, yeah, I can design a deck, but maybe someone else, if I really want this project, maybe it's worth me asking for help, you know? And so I've learned, yeah, how to kind of, I guess, what's the word? What's the word? Delegate better. And just overall, I think I've learned more about like the psychology and like everything it's everyone's still just human beings, you know? Like I think when you're an artist floating on the outside, you think it's like us and them, you know? Like us, the artist, them, the brand, them, the agency. They're the bad guys,
Yeah, the
we're the good
client
guys.
keeping me up all night, you
Right.
know? Yeah.
But it's like they actually are all human beings. And so that's one part. And then also they're like creatives too. And understanding and creating the right balance of like there being collaborative thought happening is really the sweet spot for creatives if they want to get repeat work, if they want to have like good relationships with these clients, like or these brands or these agencies. Like that's the sweet spot, I think, is like understanding what they're actually looking for from you, and where there's also room to kind of like collaborate and knowing who even to be when you're presenting, who are you even directing the energy to, like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes I think before this, like I would just be on calls with clients and I have no idea like who these people are or like what the vibe is. Like now I feel like I wouldn't go into a call without, if I had the list of people, I'm going on LinkedIn, I'm looking each person up, I'm understanding what their role is so that I can ask the right questions in the room and like speak to the right people in the room who are like responsible for the appropriate things. And even that is like it's such an inherent thing for people who are already in it. Like they already understand it and they know it. So it's not even like something that you would be telling people as advice to go and do because people just think, oh, that's just obviously. You know, it's like, no, not obviously. And like some people don't know, like, what is an account manager? Like, what does that mean? You know? Like, so I think, yeah, I'm going to definitely, I want to do something with all of this knowledge in my brain.
When you're on the inside, like you said, you understand who's who and how to speak to certain people and what do they care about. When you're out on the outside, especially now with the layer removed of being in person, so it's like harder to feel that energy like it's on Zoom and you're meeting a person for the first time and you're going to present. You know, not you don't always present the same way to everybody. And that if you haven't had that experience of being on the inside for whatever reason, then it does make it a little bit harder. And, you know, you can be really successful at it, you know, regardless if you have a good read of people's energy. But I love that, like, yeah, going on LinkedIn, research who you're speaking to, research the audience, understand what they care about, where have they been, right? Is this person, what's their background? Are they graphic design background, typography background? Are they filmmaker background? Because then it changes the language in which you can present the work so that they understand it more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's really about them understanding that you understand what they want you to do, you know?
Exactly, exactly. They want to know that you've got it and that you've understood the brief.
Yeah. And also just like what I was saying before of like, I think a lot of creatives don't go into the meeting realizing that like the people who are in the meeting have literally worked on this already for like 6 months before you've even got there. You know what I mean? So like there's things that are like it's really like imagine if you'd been working on something for 6 months, like it's pretty sacred to you at that point, you know what I mean, and you know it inside and out. So even just like recognizing that and how you speak to that and all the work that has been done thus far, because I think we can be a little bit like dismissive of that sometimes, you know, because we're just like, oh my god, this is what they sent me. Yeah, it's probably not going to be the most creative and imaginative, but that's why you're there, you know. So I think it's just like also acknowledging that though. It makes people feel good and it means that you see them and you see the work that's got it to this place and how you can elevate it. Um, but yeah, it's all just like people, reading people, understanding people, and also just access to information, unfortunately. But that is a big part.
And there's levels to it too. Like somebody sat with that for 6 months, and after you deliver it, they're going to sit with it for probably another couple months, figuring out where it needs to go. Like when we would make sequences, right? You're delivering a QuickTime or image sequence. It's either going on TV as a commercial or title sequence, or it's going on film, and you have to do a film out. And then it's like, well, wash your hands, like, thank you, studio. Like, we're moving on to the next project. When, like, from my position, that was the big hurdle. When I started at Apple, it was like, I have to care and understand how the viewer is going to experience that piece of content. It's not just here it is. What's the strategy behind it? Why should someone care about this? And how are they going to experience it, and where? So there are all these other facets onto it that you don't really understand from the outside because you're not really exposed to it. So yeah, it's good to have both sides of the coin. Yeah. You use this term, creative spirit, as like your compass, almost like your life compass. What do you mean by that? I was very intrigued.
I call creative spirit. You could also call it like your, like, I don't know, creative non-negotiables, or you could also call it the filters through which you like look at all of your life and your work. For me, it's like I narrowed it down to three things: curiosity, joy, and like I think also community is one of mine, or it might be a different term, but there was these three things that I was like, what mirrors, like, or not mirrors, what marries my life and my work. And I always want to be in a state of like chasing curiosity and like discovering something, learning something, bringing something that people don't know into the foreground. So that's one. And then joy is like, I just feel like joy is the most powerful force of like resistance, and I carry like joy in all of my work. I want to feel joyful when I'm making my work. I want my work to make people feel joyful. So that's like also another way to connect life and work in this like spiritual way, I think. And then the other one just being like around community is like, or identity. Is the work I'm doing satisfying something where it is showcasing a community or an identity? And I think like that could be literally as simple as like, oh, I get to do this job, which means I get to choose like who does the makeup and who does the styling and who does this and who does that. And so I'm going to be really selective and choose like all, I don't know, designers or all people who come from a certain community or work. Maybe if I'm making a film about queer stories, I'm going to make sure that I'm hiring queer folk behind the scenes. And that's part of the reason why I'll choose to do something or not. Like, does it allow me to bring in my community? Does it enable me to uplift my community, either by telling their stories on the outside way or also internally, like providing them with opportunities? And then that's like, I guess I call it creative spirit because it feels very closely aligned to like spiritually what I feel like is my purpose and like what I want to do in life. Like, whether that is through filmmaking, through the campaigns I create, through music videos, through just like even being a friend and community member to people who are also artists and supporting their vision. I think that's just what I feel called to do. And so I use that as my guiding principle before I decide like whether or not to do anything really. And yeah, I think like one of the things that creative spirit and allowing your creative spirit to guide you versus maybe like your ambition or a goal that you specifically set, is just that then I think I've said this a few times, but it really just opens up the possibilities because now it's no longer like, okay, I want to be a photographer. So then I get this opportunity to direct this like 10-second visualizer and I say no because sorry, I'm a photographer. I'm trying to be a photographer. Like that doesn't help you grow. Is it still in service of my creative spirit is my question to myself. And if the answer is yes, then I'm going to continue down that path and do it, no matter what form it takes. And that's how I've become like had all these different tools in my belt. Like I never intended to be a director even. Like I never even intended to be a photographer. Like I just like wanted to like talk about music I liked. So I made a creative like studio slash magazine slash it was just me basically like running this like little Twitter account back in the day. And then eventually it grew and like different people got involved. And I think like that was a great like outlet to explore all these different facets and realize, oh, the thing I really like is like I love gathering people. I love like shouting out like my communities, and I love like joy and like making people feel joyful. And so learning that early on and having an outlet to do it by myself made me think about like goals differently, where I don't really set goals like I want to direct 6 short films this year. Like it's more just like this year I'm going to continue to lean into curiosity. This year I'm going to continue to lean into like joy, or maybe I'm going to add a new one which is like specifically around identity. Like I want to make sure my projects are always kind of answering that call of like, am I honoring like my identity or my community? And that's kind of what I allow to guide me. And so yeah, I think that it's being specific, but also allowing yourself to be more open to different things that come your way as a result of that, like grounding yourself in those like specific core principles that like guide you, but also fill you up as just a human being. Like, I know I'm happy when I'm bringing joy to people. I know I'm happy when I'm learning about things or teaching people things that they didn't know. And I also know I'm happy when I'm like uplifting somebody else or a community in some way. And so it's like, if I can achieve those things, one or all, then I know it's the right thing. And I like to use that as my kind of compass.
Sounds like you're very tapped in, like you're guided a lot by intuition, right? Like you said, not necessarily stating like a really long-term goal, but just based on how things move and what you're feeling, you're guided more along that.
1,000%. And it's because I feel really clear on that compass of like where I'm heading in terms of like the things I want to do in the world, but it's not specific to how I'm going to do them. I don't know that. I feel like that is literally for God, the universe to decide. Like, I think that I've always been like kind of good at lots of things. And so I just try to have discernment around like the things that fill me up and make me feel good, because I'm good at things that also don't make me feel good. Like I'm really good at like, you know, doing spreadsheets, but that does not make me feel good. So I'm not just leading into things just because I'm good at them. I'm always like trying to make it clear to myself like these are the things that are important to you. Remember those things, keep them top of mind, and let those be the things that like allow you to make decisions in your life, rather than chasing a goal or a title, because ultimately that's always going to be something someone else is giving you versus something you're creating for yourself. And I think that also allows you to manage your expectations better. Like I am only really like expecting like things from myself. You know, it's like I'm not mad at the world for not giving me opportunities, or like annoyed because this person got this creative director title and I didn't. And I'm just like a junior creative and I want to be a mid-level creative. Like I just think it's easier. Maybe I'm trying to save myself from the hurt, but I like to just be a lot more broad about like what I see for myself. Like, I really don't know. I could end up being the prime minister for all I know. I don't think I want to do that though, but, but if the people choose me, what can I say?
If it's aligned with your purpose, you got a bigger purpose. Being driven by like overarching purpose
Yes.
is great. Do you think it's something that can be taught? Like what you're saying with your like intuition, guidance, stepping back, developing like this larger sort of vision for where you want to go, is just listening to you. Like, you think that's something that can be taught?
I think that it's something that I would say how I learned that is through community. Like when I first started like my creative career, I was in like a collective with like six other women and we all did different things. And I've pretty much since then and always moving forward have had friends who are also like creatives like me. And I think like when you talk to people who do similar things to what you do, you're able to like understand yourself more. So I feel like I learned it from like hearing my friends and community saying back to me the things that they recognize in my career or like the things that they see I really enjoy doing. And I'm like, yeah, true. That is a pattern. Like it is about identity. It is like those are the things. And so I think like I don't know if it can be taught, but I think like you do learn like about yourself and what's like important to you the more that you like share yourself with other people. I always love like it's such a like delight when somebody tells you how they feel about your work because it's so like hard to access, like how other people are perceiving it. I have no idea, right? So I loved like that early stage of my career and even now where it's like me and my friends, we use each other. Like, what do you think if I did this? Like, does this make sense for me? Like, and then hearing back, like, yeah, that totally makes sense because you did this thing last month and that's like basically in the same vein, or you've always said you wanted this, like even when we were just talking casually, I remember you said you liked this or you wanted to do that. And so friends that hold you accountable for your like goal setting, and also friends that like see you and like tell you, no, you're an incredible artist, this is the thing I like about your work or whatever it is, helps you to contextualize it. Like it's taken a long time to like figure out how to talk about my work, and I was only able to do that by talking to other people and having them tell me about myself, essentially.
Like friends that will call you out, friends that know what you've said, like the accountability parts. And they're like really good friends, the ones that can actually call you out and say, yeah, but that's not what you were really aiming for, or like what happened to that thing you were talking about, like where is it, what have you, so it's like keeping you on track too. And yeah, really big on speaking about your process because it's that positive reinforcement of yourself, right? Like so that you understand, I think, through teaching. I think there's a lot to be said there through giving back and talking about your own processes and what has worked and what hasn't worked for yourself.
And that's what friendship, like that's what you're doing on that smaller scale, when you're in a group of friends. Like I'm not doing a panel talk about my experience at this job or that job, but they're hearing me every day and they're seeing like, okay, yeah, when you started, you thought it was gonna be like this, and then like now you finished and these are your takeaways. Like how did you enjoy it? What wasn't working? And it like these questions start to help you vocalize and like actualize, like, yeah, actually it was useful because I did this and I learned this, and that's like coming from just that being reflected back to you.
Creativity is really, it's very internal, right? And so we hang on to a lot of things. If something's not going right, that can have like quite a heavy effect on you, on your mood, etc. Like you spoke earlier on about imposter syndrome, right? And we all have this internal voice. I think sometimes it's louder than others. The internal voice that could say, you're not good enough. You shouldn't, what makes you think you should be in that room? Or maybe if we all have off days, off weeks, off months where maybe performance is not where we have the expectation for it to be, if we're very heavy on ourselves with the expectation that we have on a daily basis. So how do you deal with your internal creative voice in a way, like when you're not feeling your greatest about, say, a project you've taken on, or you're trying to find those ideas? How do you deal with that?
I think like one way I deal with that is like I actually like remind myself of the things I've already done. Like I think sometimes, especially for me, my inner creative voice, like especially that imposter syndrome voice, she's defying logic a lot of the time. Like the things your imposter voice is saying are mostly not true, and they are like fact checkable. You know what I mean? And so if I'm feeling like doubt about stuff, like I'll go back and I'll look at things I've made and like what I liked about them, or just remind myself of like how far I've come. And I honestly can say like there's definitely some stuff I'm like, that wasn't the best, but I really do like all of the work that I've made. And I feel like that reminds me, like when I go back and I'm like vibing to this music video I shot in 2016, and I'm like, I'm good, you know, I actually do have good ideas. And so I think that's one, but also like two is just speaking it out loud, because when you speak it out loud you realize how silly it sounds, you know, like. And I do also think I'm really lucky to have friends that I feel safe enough to share those like inner voice things with, who are literally like, girl, shut up. You are that girl. You just did this. You just did that. You just did this. You show up for your friends. You do this with your family. Like, and they just like hype me up, you know? And I do the same for them. So I think that's a big part of it. But I think the imposter syndrome is always going to be there. But there's a difference. And I'm learning this lesson now too, of like, there's a difference between being humble and minimizing yourself. And sometimes I think I'm really guilty of minimizing myself. Like I will go out and like meet somebody or see somebody and I know exactly who they are. And I think there's no way they would ever know who I am, right? And so I don't say hi because I'm like, they don't know who I am. I'm just a random girl. And then like I'll go home to like look at their Instagram, and then I realize they're already following me and I don't even follow them. Just stuff like that where I'm like, girl, like, why did you minimize yourself in that moment? Like, you should have just gone and introduced yourself, and then you would have been pleasantly surprised that this person already was aware and was a fan of your work.
They're a
And
fan of you before you're a fan of them.
yeah, and I honestly, it's still something I'm working on, but that distinction, I heard that recently in a conversation with my friends, where it was like, we all were like, whoa, clock it. Like, humility and minimizing yourself are two different things. Like, you can be humble, and I think, especially as just like a woman, I do think like it's kind of programmed into us to kind of like make ourselves small and like, oh no, like, not, you know, I've just played a small part. Meanwhile, you literally created the entire campaign, came up with everything. Like, you're the whole reason it even came together. You handled the deal. You're the person that introduced the person. But you just want to be, you know, no, it was all these guys. And I think, like, those are the instances where, you know, I put myself, like, if I was talking to a younger version of me, or my sister, my younger sister, or somebody I care about, and I would tell them, no, don't do that. Don't let people just think that, you know, you played a minor role when you didn't. It's not bragging if you're just being honest. Like, you really did do all those things, you know? And there's like something there that's like, is pushing up against it. And I do think it's just societal, you know, where you feel like, am I showing off? I don't want to be a show off. Everybody hates a show off. I don't want to, like, you know, we're in a society where we're so like constantly surveilled, and everybody has their own personal brand online, and everybody's flexing, and like there's also a stigma around flexing, and like even if someone's confident, it's like they're cocky, and so you don't want to be that person, and it just becomes a spiral. And then I just then say nothing at all, and then it's like a year passes, and then I realize, oh, I haven't actually posted the Mercedes-Benz campaign that I directed and photographed, and then I'm like, why am I doing myself a disservice? Like, that's when it gets into dangerous territory, where it's no longer just like, oh, you're just being humble. It's like, no, you're actually cutting yourself off of future stuff. Like, I don't know, and maybe there has been, but I don't think there's even been another Black woman that's directed a Mercedes-Benz commercial. Like, please, maybe there is, and I would love to know, but even that, like, I just recently had that download of like, has a Black woman ever even done this before? And I did that, and I didn't even shout about it when I did it, because I was just so like on to the next thing. And that imposter syndrome is always there, and I'm fighting it every day. Like, it's not, I don't think even no matter what level you reach in your career, it's always going to be there. But there has to be a certain time when you unlock. And I feel like I'm in the precipice of that moment right now where it's like, if I want to reach my potential, I have to get comfortable with like sitting in like my greatness and like sitting in like the talent that I bring and like not being uncomfortable about like showing my light. And that's really like difficult because I just think I'm just not like, hey everyone, look at me kind of person when it comes to like the things I've done. And that's probably just because I like started my career again, like behind artists, like supporting artists and like, oh no, it's all them. Like that's all them, you know, I'm just here like helping, whatever. Like that's always the kind of mentality. But if I continue to do that, you know, it's only going to disservice myself. So it's something I'm still working on. But I do recognize it. I also saw this, sorry, I'm going on about this, but I also saw this like TikTok of a girl. Shout out to her. I don't know what her at was, but she also was speaking about this idea. Obviously, you know, your algorithm listens to your conversations because then all my Instagram and TikTok was like this topic. But this girl was just like, you know, I was like the first Black model to walk the Louis Vuitton runway, and I've like done this and I've done that and all this different stuff. But I just went to this party and I didn't even go inside because I got to the door and then I saw there was a guest list and I felt like embarrassed because they might not have me on the guest list. And then I just didn't go in even though I was on the guest list. And then I like went to another place and like I could have got a free gift because I was part of the campaign. I was literally on the picture of the campaign at this event, but I just didn't ask because I didn't want to be greedy and like I just thought everyone else should. And it was just like I was listening to it like this is me. Like I would rather like I'll just go. It's fine. Then push to the front and be like, excuse me, I'm supposed to be here. My name is on the list. And I think that's like, you know, it's just about getting comfortable with like who you are. Like, and now in the stage of my career I'm in, it's like getting harder and harder to ignore who I am. You know, it's getting harder and harder to kind of like tell myself I'm just a girl. I'm just doing small things. It's like, no, girl, you just did a Beyoncé campaign. You are definitely not doing small things, you know? So it's just like an everyday challenge. And I think anybody like listening that's like, I hate that, I feel that way too. Like, it happens to everybody. I'm sure even the queen herself is probably, and I mean Queen Bee, is probably has the same doubts and thoughts, you know, like everybody has these things and all we can do is like one, like remind ourselves of who we are, like I do, go back and watch my own things, and two, like share how you're feeling with your community because they are there to lift you up in those moments where you are feeling down. And like that's what I do, and my girls immediately drag me back to where I need to be whenever I let them know. So
It's that fine line with ego, right? Like we are taught to, be humble about things. And also, I don't think we get to hear a lot of those conversations around what goes on in high achievers or high performers' minds, because that could also be considered like this weakness. Like why would I want to talk about my vulnerabilities? But then when you do get in the room or you do have a conversation with somebody, especially somebody that you admire, and someone that's like maybe trod the ground where you actually want to go, and they open up and tell you about how they feel, right, with any given project or opportunity, or like you said, being in a room and like, I don't feel confident to go up and speak to that person because like, who am I? This is something to be said about that, because the more I think we talk about it, the more vulnerable I think we can also be too with people. And like you said, you have a strong community around you that's like quick to pull you out of any of those feelings. And some people really don't. And it's funny, like there's this phrase from, I think it's The Lion King, or is it Mufasa? Is like remember who you are. Right. Yeah. And it's like you have to remember who you are, and not in the egotistical, annoying way, but just know like what you've achieved and you deserve a seat at the table, because otherwise you wouldn't have done X, Y, and Z already that you've already done. You wouldn't have been invited to come into the room, you know? So yeah, I did it this past weekend. I was like, maybe I shouldn't go and talk to this person and blah, 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 blah. You sort of like minimize yourself and put yourself in the corner. But at the end of the day, now you're at home and you're like, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I do that? It's just because you're in your own head.
Exactly.
And I don't think we have, as creatives, we don't really have, like sports psychologists exist for a reason, because players have to go out on the field and there's a lot there. You've got an arena full of like 60, 70, 80,000 people on a weekly basis, sometimes, depending on who you are. And certain athletes have sports psychologists, just like they have nutritionists. And I've spoken about this before. But I feel like, yes, you can have therapy, but like, it could be interesting to explore that for creatives. Like, yes, we can have conversations like this, but performance psychology as well, to perform at this level, that what it takes to even step on set, and you've got so many people looking at you and relying on you. That's a lot of pressure for someone who may not be from that background. You may have gone to film school, may not. You may have got into film another way, you know? So it's a lot to deal with.
It is a lot of pressure, and it's a lot of like, having to do the calls with the clients and the agency. It's just a lot of energy, a lot of energy that's being expended, and like things that are personal to you and like are being dissected, so it is very it's a very like touchy like space, a sensitive space to be in.
You've been lucky to have a community, like what we were saying, and you've mentioned your community quite a few times throughout the conversation. And I can assume how important that's been on your journey, but could you just talk a little bit about like the sense of community building and how you went about building your community or finding the right people to have around you?
How it began with, especially with like, I would say my first like creative group of friends, this collective that we had, it was through the internet. Like, it was the beginnings of Instagram, the very beginnings of like the end of the Tumblr era, the beginning of the Instagram era. And it was just like finding like-minded people, and playing. Like, we would go out and just take pictures like all the time, like upload onto Tumblr, upload onto Pinterest, like constantly. And so it was about just like finding people to make with at the beginning. And what were we making? We were just like coming up with stuff, like we didn't need it to be like related to a project or a job at that stage. It was still very much like learning and growing. And so I think that me starting like a magazine became like a great like conduit for like doing creative shit with people that I hadn't met before, and like reaching out to someone, hey, you're a writer, like, can you do this thing? And then becoming friends with them, So I think it was like having things to make that like created the reason how I was able to like reach out to people and meet them. And so like I always encourage people, like, don't wait to like, you don't have to start by like working for somebody else. Like, you can just like make a thing, and like it doesn't have to like last forever. It can evolve with you even. Like, it really could just be whatever you want, even if it's like a online platform just on Instagram and you're getting people to help collaborate with you there and like pull mood board images or make little pieces of content. Like, it's just nice to make things with people, I think. So that's like the first way I've like met a lot of people, I would say, like in my creative community. And like also, yeah, I've worked with a lot of people that have become friends of mine as well. Like, that's also been a nice like connective point of like meeting someone on set and being like, I really vibe with you. Like, I have a friend who's a photographer and like visual artist, and I just like, I hadn't hired her, somebody else, like the agency had, and she was like a behind the scenes photographer on my set. And it was like, I really like this girl's vibe. Can we be friends? And we just like became friends. Like, it's always been like an energy thing. And then also just like people that are gonna uplift you, or people that you want to uplift as well. Like, I think being like a support system for other creatives as well is what has like allowed me to also have the privilege of having a support system, like you have to be that support system. Like, everybody talks about like what is it, that saying at the moment? Everybody wants a village, but doesn't want to be a villager, you know? Like this idea of like, everybody wants their crew and their gang, but then it's like nobody wants to help out for free on the weekend with this person's shoot that's like really important to them, but you don't. Sorry, my phone dies.
All right, we're back. We're back. The village and the villager.
Yeah, so I was saying, I think that everybody wants a village, right? But nobody wants to be a villager. That's something, I think, a quote I've been seeing around lately. And I just think it really speaks volumes to just like how important it is to also give the support to creatives that you want to receive from creatives if that's like your goal. So I think that's also a big part of how I found my community, is just by like, you know, seeing people that I really wanted to uplift, and doing that from a place of just like, this is something I just want to do, and then that being reciprocated, which has been, you know, a blessing. But yeah, like friendships are so important, and genuine friendships too, you know, people that have like your best interests at heart.
And what about community of people who, I don't know, like are really into your art? Like there's one, you've got your friendship community, but then as an artist, like cultivating a community around what you're doing and the art that you're creating, right? Of course, Instagram is one channel, but you've got, you know, you meet people in real life, maybe some exhibitions, etc. Like, how do you, like, if somebody's starting out their platform, they're a creative, an artist, and it's like the first few months of, you know, their journey, what do you suggest there? Like, how does one build a community?
I think first of all, like, figure out like what types of spaces are available to you to try to like be in proximity to like people that could be your community, whether that's like coffee shops or even like getting a job as a receptionist in a type of business or industry you want, or whatever it might be that allows you to get closer in real life, I think is really important. I think also like what's different between when I was starting and now is like there are a lot more like of these kind of like early career stage type of events and panel discussions and fireside chats and all these kinds of things that really like didn't really exist when I was starting out. So I think that's a great resource, and not so much to go and like befriend the panelists, but the people who are also in the audience who obviously share similar interests with yourself, similar goals for their career or aspirations. So that's like a great place to look for new friendships or creative connections, because you're all probably in a similar stage of your career at the beginning. And that's like, I think laterally is like the way that you can really build yourself up, versus like trying to make every person like your mentor or something like that. Like I don't really look at, I do have some mentors, but I really like look at like most of my peers around me for advice and things, versus someone who's like way more successful than me or whatever that might be.
And is there a reason for that? Like, you know, you want to sort of surround yourself with people who are maybe on a similar path, but not at so successful.
I think it's just like, it's just about like relatability of like, you know, like it's really incredible to have friends who are also navigating similar deals I'm navigating, or similar, you know, things that are on the table, because one, we can share information and like that helps all of us. And two, like it's just also another way of like understanding how we can help each other in those environments, like going through a negotiation process. Oh, well, I did this when I was doing my deal, and like this might help you, or here's like what I know, you know. And I think that's like how you really build, versus there's obviously benefits to like learning from someone who's far more established than you, but also sometimes I think it can feel a little bit like there's a disconnect where it's like, okay, but like, how do I do that? Because I'm not there yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they may have like more of a shorthand with their experience than you have, you know. Yeah.
So it's nice to be in the company of folks who are like, you know, also building, also in a certain stage of their career, and hopefully, you know, they will grow with you. And that's kind of where I'm at now with my friends, where it's like, you know, we've been like, there's new friends that have come, and there's also some of the old school ones that we were babies when we were just running around making pictures, and then now we're like doing global campaigns for brands, and like we can still share notes, you know, so that's really cool as well. But there's also, yeah, like I've got lots of like newer friends that is so refreshing when you just like meet someone, you're like, wow, like, oh, we don't do different things, but like we're parallel in the sense of like the levels of the jobs that we're getting or the types of clients that we're getting. And like, it's really refreshing to like meet new people and see, oh, well, how did you get to this place? Like, you know, like we've all got there in such different ways. And so it's really inspiring also to like see other people who are doing things you would like to do, and like, you know, just seeing how they navigate that, even just like on the life level aside from the work, of just like feeling seen in like the reality of like the lifestyle of a creative is so different to somebody who maybe does like a 9 to 5 and isn't a freelancer. So that support is like essential too, because like we were saying, when it comes to structure and working in agencies, like one of the benefits there is you do have this kind of like colleagues and a peer group and people that like you're constantly bouncing off of, and you have formalized reviews to understand how you've improved, you know, and like all these things that you don't really get when you're just freelance. So I use my friends as those like kind of measuring sticks of like how am I better than I was last year? How am I worse? What are the things I need to work on? Like, we're not setting these meetings, but like these are the discussions that we have that allow us all to kind of stay sharp and like keep growing. Because you need community. You can't just like create in an echo chamber, you know?
And I love that healthy competition too, with people who are on the same path as you, maybe started around the same time or maybe a little bit earlier, sooner, whatever. But I like having that sense of yeah, just healthy competition with those around you too, where you can check in on your own skills. Like, am I developing? Am I developing slower? Like, do I need to kick the gears in a little bit more? Like, is this person next to me working a lot harder than me, putting in more time than me, you know? So it's a nice like barometer of where you are too. And I think vice versa.
Yeah, and that's what we need, especially when you're freelance as a creative. You really, really need like that barometer. And like, as someone who was self-taught too, I feel like I always searched for that. And that's why I always had that with my friends, because I was actually very academic and loved school. I just didn't do anything like very creative, and then completely switched courses. So I've always had that desire of like, I just want someone to tell me like, what's the right thing? Like, is this how you're supposed to do it? Like,
There's no right answer.
there isn't a right answer, exactly. But it's like, even just seeing how many ways you can do the same thing is even interesting, you know? Like, oh, what do your voices look like? Oh, I use this platform, it helps me do them. Oh, cool, I should do it. You know, like, there's just so many like things that you can share amongst each other, and every creative basically has to create their own structure of like how they work and stuff. So it's like, it's nice to have like something to look at and be like, okay, like they're doing it this way, I think I could be more efficient and do it like that too, or whatever, you know? And just being more aware of the opportunities. If you do have friends that are doing similar things to you, like what you said of like that healthy competition of like just an understanding of like, oh, okay, I've got like 4 other friends that are photographers, and this one just got asked to do like an album cover, and this one's doing like, you know, I don't know, whatever it is. And it's like, just also opening your mind of like what's out there, what possible jobs you could do as well. Like, oh wow, I would have never thought to do like photography for an airline, but now my friend just did it. I'm like, actually, I want to do something like that too. That's a cool opportunity. And like, I love to travel, and this actually works with my brand. And I think like the biggest thing in like having genuine friendships with these people, beyond just like, I'm here to look at your work and you're here to look at mine, is then that when you really care about somebody, you don't feel threatened by them, of course. Like, that is your peer, and you want the best for them and they want the best for you. Like, you care for this person. And so that dispels any of that like scarcity mindset for me. Like, if my friend is winning, I'm winning. Like, I don't see that her getting an opportunity that I could have got, but didn't, means that like I'm any less than her, you know, and she would never make me feel that way. Like no friend of mine would make me feel that way. And so there's always this like really nice like affirmation and reassurance in that sense of like understanding like, oh no, like the same way that I could get a job that my friend is like, damn, I wanted to get something like that. It's like, oh no, but I'm glad it's going to somebody else that's like from the same world as me that I actually really support. And it also shows me, oh, there's a million jobs like this out there. Like there's actually room for all of us, and there always has been. I think like they don't they the bigger they don't want us to feel that way, and like don't want us to feel like, you know, there's an abundance of opportunities. It's always like kind of relying on the scarcity mindset for us to have hunger, be willing to sacrifice our standards or whatever we want to get paid or whatever we want to do with the thing so that we can do it, because we feel like, well, there might not be another opportunity. So it's good to also have visibility to be like, oh no, like they have money, girl. Like I worked with them before, or like, you know what I mean? Like that stuff is also like eye opening, where you're like, there's actually so much money. Like we could all work. Like it doesn't have to be one. And probably if you don't have access to people that do similar things to you, it can, and you just look through social media, it can paint a very different picture where that photographer that looks really successful on the outside, as their friend, you know, they're navigating, still getting paid for that thing that they posted 3 months ago, and like all these different things, you know, where it breaks that veil down, where you're like, actually, like, there's room for all of us and nothing is really as it seems. And so I just need to focus on myself and my journey, and being good at what I do versus like, why didn't I get that? Like, I wish I got that job or whatever, you know?
And you get to see behind the curtain, right? Like you don't have to take the scraps off the table, because you may think, oh, that's all they have, or I'm so happy to have this thing. But you can aim for those larger jobs. And you also, there's one thing that I've always thought about too, is you can be the client one day. Like you can get in that position to be able to give opportunities to others. And you don't necessarily, also don't know who may be your client one day, right? So you have to, be respectful. Make sure that when you're on set or you're working with other people, just, be graceful about it, because you never know what opportunity someone else can give. And then vice versa too. It goes for other people working with you. It's like you putting yourself in a position to be able to give that opportunity. And the more we talk about that and the more we share the knowledge with each other of our own experiences, it does dispel some of that, like, sort of Wizard of Oz secret person behind the curtain. It's not that. It's like even the people in these highest places still have the same vulnerabilities, the same issues, probably chasing a check as well, haven't been paid for 60 days, and still have the same imposter syndrome, maybe to a greater degree as well. So, the secret, I hope the secret's out a little bit. Like, don't be afraid to push and to build your community, stay true to the people that are helping you help other people as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been very fortunate to have a lot of good people in my life that did that for me. And so, you have to always think about paying it forward, spending the time to like dispel some of the myths.
Mm-hmm.
This podcast does touch on technology. We're going to go there a little bit.
Okay.
Just speaking on community first, have you ever considered like Web3 mechanics in terms of building a community and maybe minting artwork? Like you have, great photography. I'm sure you have personal projects you do as well. There's now obviously a way in which you can broaden your connection with community now using blockchain technology, Web3. We'll get into AI a little bit later. Is that something that you've been looking at or disagree with, agree with? I'd love to know your perspective on that.
Definitely, like, especially in 2020 when like everybody went inside during the pandemic. that was really when I like dove into all of that. And I think it was kind of exploding at that time, you know, like everybody was kind of like getting into like minting their artworks and different things like that. And that was like, for me at the beginning, I think I was just like, I don't know enough. And so I need to know more before I like dive in. And then I don't know, I think like I've seen a few different artists, friends of mine, sell things for like incredible amounts and just like create stability for themselves in ways that I didn't know was possible for an artist. And I think that world feels very inaccessible for artists. Like tech plus art, like are two things that really converge in so many ways, but also they are both like gate kept by access, you know, like there's so much that you have to do before you even get access to like understanding some of these concepts. So I think like I've always felt a bit like out of my depth, I would say, in like some of those like conversations, and I've always like wanted to learn more. And I spent some time during that 2020, 2021 era kind of like learning about it a bit more. And like then I think like for me where I my focus went into was just like I became kind of like, I guess just during that time, there was a lot of like, you know, the way that productions changed in terms of like shooting inside and stuff like that. And it just became like the focus for me of all the things I was making was like more so about an approach that used technology to like capture things remotely or to like work in create new workflows and things like that. But then like it meant I did a lot of work for brands and artists and didn't like create really any new like visual work of my own to like sell in those spaces. But now I feel like I'm on kind of the other side. I've like finished some of those like bigger brand projects and stuff, and I'm like where I'm at in my career is now very much like leaning back into like Mahaneela as the artist, the photographer, and I definitely want to like have an aspect of that in like my next photo book and like the release around that, the prints or like specific artworks I want to create for it that I feel like it's time to kind of like bring some of that work into like the digital sphere more, and to reach a wider audience, a global audience, you know, outside of like beyond what could you can reach on like an Instagram page, you know what I mean? And so that's like really where I think there's a really big opportunity for artists. And like now I think as well, like because I've seen friends that have done it and have some success in it, I have an access point to kind of go and ask like, hey, I want to learn more about this. Like I'm ready to do this now. I have some new work that I'm making and this is like what I want to do with it. I'm also really interested in like digital archiving and like finding ways to archive like the things that I've made over time, like my process, my decks, like these things that I kind of make in the process of making that are also artistic in themselves and also are like valuable for people to see. So that's another like, I don't know, a mini side quest that I've been like thinking about as far as like how do I bring that to, you know, like when we go into the future, like when we go to a Basquiat exhibition and we look through his notebooks, like what does the digital version of that look like for me, Mahaneela? And like I think there's a lot of value in like seeing the process and then seeing the end result. And that's something that I think could be brought to life in like a cool way using some of those like different technologies. But yeah, like it's still very much a seed that I haven't like fully planted yet, but I am really interested in it for sure.
I think you're right when you said the access, right? It's technology and art. And then I think the almost like you could say the sort of corner in the internet right now where this is all happening. It can feel inaccessible. I mean, there's access for sure, but in the right places and the right people, and like for myself, like spending a lot of time on X, you know, and meeting people like that, and then being part of a online community, Like for myself, it's CryptoPunks, and then being able to meet people and ask questions there because there's a Telegram group, and now everyone's talking about it, and you're going to different places, meeting people in real life. There's a lot of value in that, I think, with the connections that you can make there. But I think outside of that, it needs to be broadened out, and I think personally, artists such as yourself would be amazing to contribute, and I think you'd also gain a lot from being there and dabbling a little bit. I think the technology side of it can feel, maybe that's the little bit of the inaccessible side of it, the learning curve. You have to go down the rabbit hole, to understand it a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I'm ready though. I'm like, now my mind is open. I think also it's like seeing examples of like successes or like people that are doing it that really like pushed me to be like, actually, I want to explore that, because it just sometimes feels like, yeah, until you see someone like you doing it and you're like, wait, I can do that. Like, I feel like I can see how this could apply to me now. Whereas before it was like, it doesn't feel relevant to like what I'm doing, but it very much is.
And when you are actually in it and you are going down the rabbit hole, then you start to see more people. It's like, oh, I was on the call another day with the curator at the LACMA, and she was talking to me about the woman's artwork. She's from Ethiopia, and they're directly working with her to develop her collection and then to find collectors, right? To onboard them into understanding the technology, but also into her work too. So I thought, wow, it's still so early, even though I think the beginnings of this is like, 2020, 2021, when most people sort of discovered, digital art, digital assets, maybe a bit before that for digital assets such as like crypto. But on the art side of things, it's relatively young. And that just really highlighted for me like the opportunity that lies there for photographers, artists, directors as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I suggest, if you want to
Well, I'm like, we got to talk more about this.
ask more questions, we can continue.
Would love that.
The other side of the question, I think, is, of course, a lot of the headlines are about AI. And you are an image maker through video, through stills. You work on campaigns, commercials, music videos. What are your thoughts there? How are you preparing for it? Are you learning and discovering tools, or are you like, no, it's not for me?
So it is such a topic of conversation every single day of my existence right now. Even like in agencies I've worked at, it was like initially like they would not allow you to use it, and then now we're in a different space in such a short space of time where now they're teaching people how to use it. So I think that there's an undeniable fact that it's here, very much here, and is not going away. But I also completely reject the idea of like AI art just like without the artist. So for example, things like a AI musician putting out records, I just cannot get down with that.
That $2.4 million deal the other day, right?
Unbelievable. Like, to me, it's an insult to artists. I think that AI, I honestly kind of wish that it only had like limited applications, which were more so just like utility based. But we are here where it's way beyond that now. And I think like as any artist in times that are changing, it's if you want to like, especially in just industry, let's say, and maybe not artist, but a creative, when times are changing, it's important to learn like what is actually going on in the space. So I definitely have been like learning about AI, learning about the capabilities, seeing like the very real ways in which it's replacing people within my industry, people that I usually would rely on, that now just I don't actually need them as part of my process, which is scary because it's only a certain amount of time before it gets to me in terms of like which roles are needed and not needed. But I do think that like there is value in it as a tool, absolutely. And like I'm already like I have used it as a tool in my creative process before. I still do in some aspects. I think it's just like there's every person is basically using it in whatever way they see fit. There's no kind of guideline, there's no kind of like even moral like code. I mean, if you think about what it's doing to our environment already, it's like horrendous. And yet, like, there are so many other things that are horrendous too, like celebrities taking private jets or whatever it might be. So it's like really difficult to navigate. Like, and I think it's so interesting. It's always the consumer that like they put all of it on the consumer. Like, you should feel guilty every time you know, turn on a light switch or something. Meanwhile, these corporations are the ones that are like literally like completely decimating the planet. But it's like so layered, you know? It's like I don't like condone like the idea of like AI replacing artists, AI writing songs, AI writing like anything really, that because it's like it's always going to be a culmination of real things that real people made. It cannot like create like an original thought, you know? But I do think like it's here to stay and it is something that is like already being implemented. Even if you told yourself, I'm not going to go on ChatGPT or any of these platforms and I'm not going to use it, you're still using it when you Google search something. You're still using it in the technology behind your Uber app or behind any of the other apps that you literally use on a daily basis. And so we've kind of gone past the point of us even having a choice whether or not we're using it on a daily basis. And so for me right now, I'm learning it and I'm trying to understand the beast, you know, because I think it's just important to know what you're dealing with, to even just know the capabilities. I have some friends who are using it for image generation, which is like crazy because there's people that are like, you know, AI artists and like selling photography of people that aren't real. And it's just like, I just can't honestly get behind that. But at the same time, um, it's an efficient tool that can really give you the user like the world at their fingertips depending on like what their creative prompt is. And so I think we're moving into a time where creative prompts and prompting is really going to be a new creative skill, that like or it probably already is a creative skill that people are honing, and I'm probably like so late to the game, but like people writing prompts like is going to be the new thing. But like honestly, like I just think with any technology I want to learn it. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to use it in my creative practice. But it is like it's scary. I do feel scared, like just as an artist in the world right now. Like it's very scary because it feels like there's a threat to things that have been made completely by human brains and human hands, you know? And as we move into these kind of hybrid spaces where it's like, oh yeah, like it was my thing, but then like I asked ChatGPT to give me the name of the episode, you know, and then it's like, at what point does it cross the line of like you're using this for good or you're using this for bad, or you're using this as a tool or you're using this to just do the art for you or to come up with the ideas for you. And that's really at everyone's discretion, which probably isn't a good thing, I think, but it's where we are. So I just like don't even know. I'm like, we're here. Like I don't know what to do. We're here already.
Yeah, like how did we get here?
I know. I think though like nothing could ever replace human art. Like I don't know, maybe I could be fooled on certain things that like take less soul to make, like a copy line on the back of a juice box. Maybe I wouldn't notice it. But when it comes to like music and visual art and photography and stories and things like that, I think that like the magic of those things are in like lived experiences being the kind of like place from which anyone creates from. And you can tell, you can feel like when it's something that's real. But I don't know how much longer we'll be able to tell.
Well, I think here's how I look at it, and I have this term. I just call it like grounded optimism, right? I think there's a lot of the fear-based fear mongering out there for for a lot of the right reasons. Also, I think there's always positive and negative byproducts of any technology. Admittedly, this is the biggest thing probably in our lifetime or ever to happen to humanity, right? And so we don't necessarily know what the end result is going to be. But I like in my mind at least to try and frame it in an optimistic way, but be grounded at the same time. And as a creator, you hit the nail on the head when you said like lived experiences, because I do believe that, that level of taste, that level of experience, even your own identity, you bring a lot of that to your work, which is a very human aspect of what you produce and what's out there. Using these tools, and of course, like I have experimented. I've got people, around me that do more than experiment. Like they're living this on a daily basis, and understanding the efficiencies that it can create for you as an artist to get your ideas out there, even if it's a first pass. What we do run into on a, let's just say not work, but a professional, like let's say your professional personal projects, if that makes sense. There's still a limit of what the tools can produce when you are very like trying to be pixel perfect, like we were at the beginning of this call, right? It looks blurry, let me fix my camera and all of this, right? If you care and you're trying to make work at that level, you need the human involvement, I believe, at the beginning of the process, coming up with the ideas. What's the input? What is your artistic kind of journey that's brought you to this point in time to make these decisions and to be able to curate, to be able to have input? Because otherwise, where's the input really coming from? And yes, you can press one button and generate an image, but it can be considered as kind of soulless at the end of the day if there is no artist or creator behind it. But I do believe it can open the doors to be able to explore more that's in our minds that maybe we don't have the technical abilities to be able to explore that. So now maybe we can visualize something quicker. We can get to a result where we can see, does that lighting work or that lighting not work? Did these color pairings work or did they not? With the exact thing that I want to make. But then you have to get involved again to actually produce and do the production or the post-production or finishing. So I'm still in this mind of, at least right now where we are with current tools, that there's such a valuable human aspect to the creative process with or without AI. And I'm optimistically, but grounded, that this is going to continue. And it's going to be really important of how we partner with these tools.
Yeah. I think like we have to be involved as artists, because if we're not involved, then it could lead to even worse, an even worse situation for art and the value that we place on art as a society. So I do think it's important artists are part of this process of as AI is evolving and growing, and we have a perspective in it. But yeah, it still is scary to me, just the prospect of where we're going. But I am hopeful, and I think that there are like a lot of incredible uses, definitely, that are like honestly even like saving lives. Like there are so many incredible practical uses for those like technologies. But it's just, how do you police it, like when we have a limited finite resource and it's like killing the environment and people are using it to make memes, you know, and using it to like just make stuff just for like LOLs on the internet and not actually like crafting something or using it in a process or using it to, help you actually achieve something real. So yeah, I think it's like it's a tough one. It's still like I have experimented, like you said, but it's still not something I would ever like put front facing as and say that's mine as an artist. And I think like I don't know. I think I still am always going to be on the side of like what's real. It's like inherent of like the type of work I've done. It's so layered with my identity, like you said as well. So I think I can't imagine a world where my output involved stuff like that. But honestly, people probably said the same thing when it was like at the beginning of like CGI graphics or things like that, where they'd be like, yeah, I could never use a computer in my work. And now we're here. So who knows?
Editing, typography, going to the computer from letterpress, everything, And I think there'll probably be more mediocrity, more low level work, and more high level work. I think it will just democratize, and you will see a lot of stuff and you're like, oh my God, we're flooded with all of this sort of mediocre work. But then hopefully, if we adopt it in the right way, it can, enable us to be able to create great work, those who are willing to adopt it in that way and really care. Yeah. Quickly, just on the topic of identity, since we just discussed it, you say it's like it's integrated into your work. How do you feel like that separates you from other photographers and directors, sort of like in your field? And what's your experience with like your bringing your own identity to your creative practice?
I think that like it separates me in the sense that like I wouldn't say I'm like unique in this, but I think that my identity is unique. And so because of that, like I come from India, I come from Ghana, I come from Jamaica, I'm also from London. Like there are so many connective things between all of those different cultures. And I look at like because I am someone that exists in multiple different identities, I think that what makes me different in my perspective is how I often see commonalities between different things because I've always grown up like looking at the Indian side and then looking at the African side and being like, oh, we do that. Like that's a similar thing or whatever it might be. And it's always allowed me to like, no matter where I go, find a connection with people through that. Like whether I might be from Jamaica, that person might be from Trinidad, but then there's also some connection with the Indian side or whatever it might be. Like it's always been a way that I've found connection to people. So I think that's something that sets me apart, like in the process of how I'm talking to the people, what I'm asking them, where are you from? Where's your family from? Like those are the things that then like when someone recognizes, oh, we have something in common, then all of a sudden like the kind of like everything falls. The facade falls, the ease comes in, the relaxed kind of demeanor is more present. And so there's a lot of things I can find in common with really anybody, I would say. Like I touch so many different nexus points of like, or different intersections of like identities. And so I use that as a way to connect with my subjects when I'm photographing them or I'm doing a film with them or whatever it might be and directing them. So I think that sets me apart. And then the other part of your question was,
oh, how integrating your identity and your background, how you managed to integrate your background and your experiences into your work.
I think like that is something that happens so organically. And I've really like noticed it a lot in right now I'm writing my feature and I've been like discussing with like this writing group that I have. And I noticed that in all of our films, like as I'm learning about the films and week on week I'm meeting with the people, I'm realizing that these characters are really like us or like versions of us or an aunt that we knew or a guy we always used to see on the subway or whatever it might be. And I think it's always been in my work, but I doing the writing, like really like made me see it on paper, where I was like, wow, we really do just like subconsciously pick up all these different things, and then like they just come back out in our work, you know? So it could be as simple as like in the set design for a commercial I'm doing, there's a girl's bedroom and I'm putting her baby hairbrush on the side because that's where I keep my baby hairbrush, on the side. And those things are like, just, I just think intuitively that's just what it should be. And it's like it's coming from like something that's very personal to me and a connection I have. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. That's why I enjoy like doing advertising and things that even may feel far away or disparate from like my like personal work or whatever the personal professional work is, right? But like I still think there's value in like, I actually think there's a lot of value in like doing a commercial for like a global brand that's like super mainstream and just like highlighting a super nuanced part of like culture or identity, because you just are literally telling people I see you, like, and that's so important on those big scale projects especially. And it's like quite easy to like do those things like kind of without people even realizing that you're doing it, if you know what I mean. So I love to do that, and I love to integrate my identity in that way, whether it's like, you know, a scene in the bed in the kitchen and the mum opens the refrigerator and it's a box of ice cream, but actually inside is leftover jollof rice. Like that is like through and through gives like my like community and where I come from, and is very specific. And so those are the kind of nuances that don't get written down, but like are the things that really make people feel seen when they experience something, when they watch something. And so I try to do that intentionally. So, and I try to hire people that come from those backgrounds that I'm like discussing or covering in whatever the subject is, and have them do the same thing, because we all do it inherently, you know? And if I hire a makeup artist that comes from a certain community, she's going to have a specific knowledge and about the nuances of like this specific like lash is like what the girls wear in this specific part of town or whatever, you know? And like those things matter. I think that like we have a really wonderful opportunity when it comes to like big scale campaigns to normalize things. And so I try to use every opportunity I have to like do that in some way, like just normalizing a part of my culture or somebody else's culture on a global stage like that, where that's never the brand's goal and they don't even probably know that I'm doing it. But those are the kind of intangible things that make a campaign great, that make a campaign feel relatable, you know, make art really feel relatable.
It's those details that, like you said, it's like, oh, I see you as the audience, but also enables the audience to see themselves. And there's far too many campaigns or ads or, you know, print or whatever it might be, videos that have been directed for, I don't know, film, TV, commercials, whatever, where it is kind of absent and you don't necessarily see yourself there, or you don't necessarily see yourself at these larger companies from the outside. But if that can somehow come through and, I don't know, just enable you to be like, there had to be someone there that put that in there, you know, even if it's a subliminal message.
I love that thought and I love to be that person.
So now it's like, okay, like even if I don't see the actual person behind the curtain, I know that there's someone there, because there's no way that would have happened if there wasn't, you know.
Yeah.
Please keep on doing that. I love it. Yeah. And that's what separate maybe is not the right word, but that's what makes you unique. Going back to the AI conversation, right? It's all of these unique abilities from your story and your heritage that you can bring in and have a more of a human voice in the equation. Yeah. So just in closing, we've got through a lot here, and thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
Yeah, it's been great. I've seen a lot of similarities actually in our journey along the way too. I think it's just great to talk it out as well. I have a question I ask everybody, for you, but for yourself, it would be through the successful like career that you've developed. and you're obviously like you have a community, you have a large following, you have people that look up to you with the work that you do. What do you think it takes to be a professional creative in the space that you're in?
It takes a combination of vision, like seeing your potential outside of just what's laid out for you or what's immediately in front of you. Two, I would say, is like understanding like the offering that you bring to the world. I think is really important. Like one of the things that and it's like new me saying this about myself, because this is what I've been hearing about myself lately from my friends and my community. But I think I'm a very grounded person in my talent and what I bring to the table. Like, I feel very clear on that. And so, because I have that clarity of like, I know, and I think someone explained this to me early in my career actually, like, they told me I was an expert. They told me I was the expert in my reality and my lived experience. And so when I'm moving through these environments where, especially at that time, I was a little bit like less experienced, intimidated, other people have been there a lot longer than me or whatever it might be. This person just told me like, no, you're an expert. Like you should be walking in there like, I know exactly what I'm talking about. And I am an expert. I've lived this life. I am the target audience. You know, that's why you're bringing me in. And I think like that shifted something in me where I just then was able to like move through my career like without that feeling shaky. Like there's definitely imposter syndrome that comes and goes, and like we've all talked about, like that's normal. But like I don't feel like I'm not good at what I do. Like if I didn't think what I was doing like had value, like then nobody else would believe it had value, you know? So it's really up to me to believe that, because it's that confidence and that self-assuredness which then allows me to like navigate and other people to believe it. Like, and all it is believing. And I know it sounds cliche, like just believe in yourself, but like truly, like I have a lot of like self-belief, and I think I I feel like I was lucky because I didn't realize like how different this was, just my norm. But now as I grow up and me and my friends, we compare our lives or upbringings, and I realized I had a lot of positive affirmation as a child. Like I was always told like I could do whatever it was I was saying I wanted to do. And I believed that. I feel like I fully took that in. I also grew up in a very unconventional upbringing. I was brought up in a retirement home, like an old people's home. My mum was like the manager of an old people's home. And so all my peers were like old and, you know, basically like grandparents who were like, you could do anything. And I just had like all these adults telling me I could just do it, you know? And so it made me believe I could do it. And it also just like made me feel like the thing that's in debate is never about like whether or not I'm bringing value. It's more so about like, did I approach it in the right way? Do I understand how it works? Like those are the things that I worry about, which I think is normal. But like, I don't allow like me not getting an opportunity or me not like career going in the way I've expected it to go, dissuade me or convince me that I'm not adding value. And even like take away the followers, take away all of those things, I still feel validated in what I'm doing in terms of like what I bring as an artist. I don't get that validation from other people telling me like, oh yeah, I'm following you, like that means that you're good. Like I really don't like even the idea of follower counts and things being something that you equate to your value. I care about what people think, but I care about like the people I care about and what they think, right? I don't care about random people on the street or, you know, this person in an ad agency or whatever it.
Some troll.
Yeah, you know, like it's just, or a troll. It's just like, for me, as long as I know I'm showing up to the community that is around me, my immediate community, my family and my friends, and when we talk about ourselves and we affirm each other, I'm hearing that I'm doing the right things as far as being true to myself, leading with joy, leading with curiosity, like helping people, living in my purpose. Like that's where I get my value. I think like work is a blessing that I've been able to even figure out what I wanted to do, because I think that's hard for anyone, you know? So already like having that clarity on like, this is what I want to do with my gifts is already like a big step. And it's challenging to get there, but I do think like once you've got there and you understand the value you bring, like nobody can take that away from you. If my Instagram account left tomorrow, I wouldn't feel like, obviously I'd be upset my Instagram account's gone, but I wouldn't feel like now starting again, I'm not a good photographer or a good artist. And I personally have seen like people equating that like follow account or whatever to somebody's like value of like this or the quality of their art. And I think that's like also just not the right way to think about it. Like as an artist, you shouldn't limit yourself. I mean, looking back, like most artists like would have failed spectacularly if they were growing up in this era where you have to have an Instagram and be a voice and speak to the camera and, you know, look cute and be fashionable and go to Fashion Week and do all this stuff that's like not actually about like the value you're bringing to the world. Like I believe that the artist's role is to like reinterpret the times, right? To help us understand like the times that we're living in. And so we can only do that by like living our lives and like experiencing what we experience and sharing it with the world. And everybody, every single person like can do that, and that's valuable. And nobody can tell you it isn't. I just think like it's hard to remember that in a world that's saying like followers equals value and, you know, like accolades equals value. I mean, I keep saying Beyonce, but look at Beyonce and like the Grammys as an example. Like you, the most talented people in this planet still get underestimated. Like it's not at all like a way of measuring your value that you bring on this planet. And I think going back to creative spirit, like that's why I refuse to allow those other things to be a measure of my success. And I choose to only allow myself to measure my success and the value I bring to this world by those principles that bring me joy and like make me feel full and whole as a person outside of my output as like a person working in this world. Because labor is not, I don't dream of labor. That should not be how I'm like valuing myself either, you know? And so it's important. I also think like another thing I would say to people is like hobbies. Like my all of the things I like to do have now become like my job. And so I try really hard to like maintain something that's just for me, that's just for creating's sake, you know? And that's another way to just keep yourself in that childlike curiosity and like wanting to explore and play and learn. Because again, those are the things that like keep you feeling like you still have something to say. And I think like that's really like constantly the thing. Like sometimes you do have things to say as an artist, sometimes it's time to just listen and like absorb. But like I really feel like it's always about just like guiding yourself through that creative spirit and that compass that you set for yourself, and just staying true to that. And like whatever happens around you, I almost have like a force field around me. I feel like, you know, it's like I'll take the good or reject the bad, but no matter what, like it's not going to change how I feel about the stuff I'm making. Like if I feel good about it, that's like really what I'm trying to satisfy, and everybody else is a bonus, you know?
It's that creative fulfillment at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's the word.
And if you have a strong creative fulfillment or a strong idea of what does fulfill you, then that's your shield, isn't it? Right? It doesn't matter about the followers count and all of that, although it's very hard to think that way in the society that we are in now, because that's like, oh, 2 people like my post, that means it wasn't good. May not be. Maybe the algorithm may be that's not your audience, right? But someone's gonna care about it, and maybe those people aren't just all online, you know. And I think it's really crucial also to, if you have that self-belief and you feel creatively fulfilled in what you're doing, then you can convince those around you and those people who may hold those opportunities, that you are right for that position or that role, right? But if you don't, and you let like the algorithm or the social media account or whatever it might be, or the accolades get in the way of that, then you can kind of get your knock of confidence on your own self for what you're trying to achieve. You know, it's not always about the trophy. It's nice, it's the cherry on top, but it is about the process. You know, as cliche as that sounds, I think it's the process and your fulfillment, your individual fulfillment. It looks different for everyone.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Thanks for doing this. This was great. I'm glad we were able to do it. I know we've been sort of planning it for a little while.
I know. I'm really happy I was a part of this.
Congratulations again on obviously the big recent job with Beyonce. You look beautiful.
Thank you.
Congrats for just, you know, moving forward with your career and defining it, architecting it in the way you want.
I appreciate you. Yeah, it's been a journey, but I'm just getting started, honestly.
Good. It's more to come.
Thank you.